My guest tonight is a true character actor. If you're a fan of The Office, Better Call Saul, the hit comedy horror series What We Do in the Shadows, then you've definitely seen this man do what he does best. He is a native of Onalaska, Wisconsin. Hopefully I said that right. He didn't grow up dreaming of being an actor. His accidental career path began with this awkward appearance on local TV morning shows as the so-called yo-yo expert Kenny K-Strasser. And we're gonna dive into it. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Everyone, please give a super warm welcome to our guest tonight, the amazing Mark Proksch. Yay! Hey, Mark. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You have no idea how excited I am and how excited the audience is. I honestly, I am a big fan. I've seen you in so many different things. So the opportunity to get to talk to you tonight is one that's warming my heart. But the fact that you take the time to be here is great. Right out the gate, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody. What is your military connection?
Yeah, I like a lot of people, I have, aunts and uncles and grandparents and great grandparents that have served. And so, my wife and I, though neither of us have served, are in a position where we can help out a lot of people through different charities. We do the Gary Sinise Foundation, and we also do the Wounded Warriors that we give to. And like I've mentioned in the past, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you sit in. I think it's really important that we support those who support us, and the military absolutely supports us, whether it's during peacetime, which we're in a brief moment of, or not. We're always so damn lucky to have the best military in the world.
Oh, that's I appreciate that. Thank you on behalf of all those out there. I appreciate that. Man, there's so much to get into and so little time. So before we start talking about the acting and all the different shows you've been on and things, I want to get to know you a bit better. This is a show about pop culture, right? We talk about Marvel and Star Wars and all these different things. I'm curious, what are you a nerd of, right? Whether it, history or music or where does your nerddom lie?
I am a big nerd of music and movies. And so I grew up, you mentioned Star Wars. That was my Luke Skywalker, like so many kids. And, it then became show was something I was very much into. And as I've gotten older, I've really explored more of, the music side of things. And I've been so lucky to be able to meet some of my heroes musically. And it's something that I'm not really in that world. Like, I'm not a musician. I wish I was. But I've tried several times throughout life, and it just didn't work. But yeah, I like digging and digging and digging for obscure bands and obscure songs and the like. And as far as movies, gosh, I think I could, go on for hours talking about movies in the 70s and 80s. And not so much nowadays. I feel like, the movie business has dropped off the face of the earth with streaming that's come along. It's so strange now that you mostly watch movies in your house as opposed to the theater, which is too bad. It's almost robbing the gravitas away from the movie industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a valid point. Valid point. They, wow. Music was a surprising answer. I like it. I like it. We're already learning more about you, Mark. That's a great answer.
Yeah, I can go on a long tangent about obscure odd music, which I've done on what we do.
Right.
It's an area that I love.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. But we're gonna have you back another episode. We'll do a whole music. We'll do a whole hour on music. But
yeah, I'll really bore your listeners at that
point. So now I know that acting wasn't something, like, because you hear these people that are like, I'm in the business now, and I started training at 3. I was doing pageants, and then I was doing, I was booking my first gig while I was in high school, and this and this and that. That wasn't something that was on your radar, really. So tell us a bit. I mean, who was Mark? Who was young Mark? What was you like? What was going through your head at the younger age?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing going through my head when I was younger was, basketball and baseball, and then watching football.
Okay.
That's what I loved. I mean, basketball was my big sport, and yeah, I still think I have a chance at making the Celtics. I don't know if it's going to be this year or next, but there's still a chance. I mean, I grew up in Wisconsin, and the Milwaukee Bucks at the time were the last team on earth that you would be rooting for. And, I guess it was, mid 80s, and the Celtics, it was either you were a Celtics fan or a Lakers fan. And I chose the Celtics because all my friends were Lakers fans. So, I know I can hear a lot of moaning out there. But yeah, Larry Bird and Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, all those guys were what I was interested in. Acting was really never anything that I thought about or considered outside of maybe a school play or two.
Right.
And I didn't go to, college for that. And I didn't participate in any college theater at all. It was something that I just fell backwards into, but I was always really into comedy. I was always a big comedy nerd, and I would sit and watch, Fernwood Tonight and Saturday Night Live and SCTV on reruns on TV Land or Nick at Night, which
Right.
is what it was back then. And I just loved, that whole world of comedy and stand-up comedy I was really into when I was younger. And so that's what I was interested in. I never thought acting was a possibility. I'm still not sure if it's a possibility at times, but I just,
That's
that was
awesome.
what I was interested in.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I already, I feel like we're closer already. I feel like we're getting to know each other, getting to know more about Mark, and I love it. As I mentioned in the intro, as I'm digging in and learning about your career and kind of how you got started, obviously the big starting point was K-Strass. For those that don't know, and really, this is, I mean, it is so good, dude. I went back and I watched all of it. It is so funny. Can you explain to the viewers at home what K-Strass is and how that came to be?
Yeah, so K-Strass was a character that my friend Joe Picken and I came up with, and the concept. And what it was I booked myself on morning shows as a character, a idiot named Kenny K-Strass Strasser. And the morning shows had no idea that I was playing a character. They thought they were booking a real person. And the idea was that, or what I told them was that I was various schools to teach kids about the environment through my yo-yo tricks. And I said I'm a master yo-yoist, and that I would come on, do some demonstrations, and these morning shows, they have so much time that they need to fill. And, the idea to them of someone coming on talking about a hot button issue like the environment,
Mm-hmm.
who can do yo-yoing and is visiting area schools, it was just, a no-brainer for them. And then once I got on, well, I can't yo-yo. I mean, I I don't really like yo-yoing even. And so I would sit and talk about how awful that this character's life was. And, or about, just he was very socially awkward and inept and just kind of off, like a kind of a lovable weirdo that you would meet at the grocery store in line at the DMV. And yeah, so once I got on and started basically tanking the interview, you could really see the deer in the headlights look in their eyes, trying to get me off the air as quickly as possible.
Oh, it's for those that love like the Borat stuff and the Ali G stuff, and like this is that, but even like I don't know how to put it into words. It's so raw and so uncomfortable and so awkward, but in the best possible way. I highly implore everybody, go out there, go on YouTube, find it, K-Strass, and oh man, it's so good. One of my favorites.
Yeah, the idea was. Oh, go ahead.
No, please, you.
No, I was just going to say the idea behind it was, I'm the idiot in the interviews. It's not the people, it's not the news anchors or anything. And that's one thing that I've always been proud of, is I didn't make them look like morons, really. Right. And so it's very, user friendly in that way. It is awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not making them the butt of the joke, right? It's yourself. You're embarrassing yourself on public access and like, these morning shows. And to be honest, like, it's not like you went on like the Today Show or Good Morning America. These are smaller local town, things. And man, I love, when you do the demonstrate, like you go to do the demonstration, but like the yo-yo falls apart, and or at one point, you're talking about like, oh, all the drugs I was doing and the women and the gambling and like, like the idea is that you're about to tell kids about recycling. You're like, I was on death's door knob. Like, it was so good, man. Like I give you so much respect because, not as a trained actor, not as a improvisational specialist, that you're just a guy and you're like putting yourself on camera on live TV with God knows what's going to happen. And like, were you terrified? Like, were you crapping your pants? Like what was like, what's going through your mind when you're doing this stuff?
Yeah, it was an interesting time in my life. I was living in San Francisco, and my girlfriend at the time and I had just broken up, and I had a bunch of friends moving back to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee in particular. And so, I said, all right, well, I'll just move back to Wisconsin. And I was working kind of temping and really not knowing what I wanted to do. And I remember the morning of the first interview, I had to drive from Milwaukee up to Green Bay to a news station up there for the morning show. And I remember it was like, I had to wake up at 4 a.m. and it was a blizzard out. And I just remember lying in bed thinking, no one would blame you for not doing this. Like, my friends were all excited about it and everything. And I was just like, you could skip this and it'd be fine. But then the other thought popped into my head, and which was like, and then what? Just keep temping the rest of your life and sitting around doing nothing and just talking about these ideas. And so I hauled my lazy ass out of bed and did it. And that first one, as long as I'm playing a character, I really just don't get that nervous about it, because I feel like if I'm this idiot, they have at least something to tell their friends about. Like, oh, I met the biggest dummy today, or you wouldn't believe what this moron that I interviewed. And I always pictured in my head, which would almost break me on certain interviews, which was thinking of some farmer watching the morning news and seeing this idiot and just being like, Martha, you got to come here. There's a moron on TV. That makes me laugh. That idea makes me laugh really hard. But yeah, as long as I'm in character, I don't get too stressed.
Yeah. And I wonder too, if there's something about it's like I'm not doing it. Kenny's doing it, right? If it goes
100%.
badly, it was Kenny that had a bad day. Like it wasn't Mark, it was Kenny, right?
Totally. Yeah, like I know they think this guy's an idiot, but they don't think I'm an idiot.
Right.
So, it's that type of thing.
Yeah,
insane thinking that you put in your head, I guess.
Yeah, and that works out to being an actor quite well. Which, speaking of which, and I know there's a kind of a roundabout way from how we get from K-Strass to this, but you end up getting a recurring role on The Office. You do 19 episodes total as Nate. Like when because I know it was through a connection that happened, but it's because of what you did as Kenny that you get this role as Nate. And I'm curious, when you get offered this role, at that point, do you realize like, oh, like maybe acting is the thing I'm gonna do? Like, was that when it came into you?
Yeah, totally. Growing up in the Midwest, it's not like you grow up and think, well, I'm going to go Hollywood and become, an actor. Like, at least not in my family. We didn't think anything like that. And, I think that a lot of the people that do think that, they end up kind of nowhere out here. I think it's the people that kind of just do stuff on their own and get some eyes on it. I think you have a better chance and more, a better opportunity for success than just coming out here straight away. And so but that said, I got very lucky. The K-Strass appearances blew up online, and people started watching them, and the writers of The Office started watching them during their lunch breaks. And they were saying like, well, we should get this guy to come onto The Office. And they couldn't figure out who I was, though, because I had taken down all my information, because I really wanted people to think it was, this guy was real and everything.
Right.
And it was my now wife, who was a writer on The Office, that figured out who I was. And she had only started there a few, like 3 or 4 weeks before the K-Strass stuff blew up. And so, me making a jackass of myself on a morning show got me a career and a wife. So not too bad, I guess.
Which one's better? Which one's better? Brownie points.
Yeah, obviously the wife.
There you go. Good answer. Good answer. And to everybody that's watching right now, a lot of people are, giving you props and saying they love you on What We Do in the Shadows, and you're the favorite vampire.
Wow, that's so nice.
If you guys have questions for Mark, go ahead and put them in the chats, and we'll get to them as we go through this, as always. Moving on. So you did 19 episodes of The Office, or you appeared in 19 episodes. Do you have any favorite moments with the cast, or any crazy antics that you were part of behind the scenes on your time during The Office?
Yeah, I did a member of that. That show was just so iconic, and young people are coming to it again, which is really interesting. They really let me kind of improvise quite a bit, which I was surprised by. And so there were times when, we would go off script, and we always filmed the first couple takes, and those were always scripted. And then after that, we could go off script a little bit, and where, I would be acting with Jenna, and Jenna's an easy laugher. And so I would get Jenna going, talking about, Nate's mom and questionable home life. But there were so many times, like during the Christmas episode, where I think it's Rain and I and Zach Woods' character that are rocking out to, I think it's Siberian Express or something, right. A rock band that does Christmas stuff. And man, we just couldn't stop laughing. I'm surprised they even got, a usable take of that. But, that cast was always so welcoming. Rain was the first person I met, and he just, cornered me in the hallway and was just so effusive and nice and kind and really put me at ease. I didn't know what, I had no excuse being on an actual TV set, and so that was always something that I think of fondly. And also, the first scene I ever filmed was Nate who's kind of the handyman around the office, is
Right.
trying to get rid of a wasp's nest that's up in a tree. And that was the first thing I ever filmed. And I remember just, it was me. And then, 30 feet away, it's the crew. And it's like 40, 50 people sitting there staring at you. And I just remember right before that take, Rain said, you just do what you do. You belong to be here. You're a funny person, and that's all that we are, and that's coming from Rain, who is a classically trained actor. So It was, moments like that I really remember and are thankful for.
No, that's awesome. Like you want to believe that a lot of these ensemble casts are welcoming and warm, but obviously, life being what it is, we know that that's not always the case. So it's nice when you get to hear those kind of stories. So that's awesome. And we are getting a few questions about what we do in the shadows. I got you guys. I have them. I've captured them. I'm gonna put them all together. When we talk about that, because there's a few more things I want to talk about before we get to there. In the years after getting the role in The Office, you do a voice for Bob's Burgers, you do an episode of New Girl, Adventure Time, Portlandia, Modern Family. These are huge shows that have, varying cult followings or big time. Like, in that early part of your career, did you ever take a moment to just kind of like, wow, like really, step back and go, I can't believe I keep getting these shows? I can't imagine what's going through your mind at that time.
Yeah. You feel very lucky. You really do. And any sense of pride any sense of pride is always tempered by, the 4 or 5 opportunities you didn't get. And so, you got on Modern Family, but you missed out on these other 3 shows.
Right.
And so it's Hollywood, where you get to pop the cork of the champagne. It's always tempered by either, missing a car payment or 2, or especially when you're starting out, missing a car payment, or gosh, I remember my car was always getting towed because I couldn't afford to renew my tabs. And because I had like 5 parking tickets on top of that. I should include that, and so, in the end, I ended up paying way more than if I had just paid off the parking tickets, but I never had the money to pay off the parking tickets at first. And so, I was very lucky and got on some really great shows, which, it's a slow game for a lot of people. And, especially for character actors like myself, it's a slow burn to get to a level that people would consider, successful, either monetarily or, fame or whatever. It takes a long time unless you're like, you're a huge blowout star of something, and that's happening less and less. I feel like.
Okay. Well, in 2015, you book Better Call Saul, your Daniel Pryce Wormald, which 4 episodes, but some of the, again, like you do it so well that it's this character that as I'm watching, like I'm somehow rooting for, but also can't stand. Like he's so frustrated. Like you want well for him, but it's frustrating. He's so frustrating. So kudos. I mean, it's you do that dance so well. You walk that line so well. Is that something you draw from personal experiences of your life? Is that just who you are? Like, how do you do that character?
Thank God that's not who I am. I I don't think my wife would be around much longer. We've all met people like Daniel or Pryce, or he's the arrogant idiot.
Mm.
You know, he's this person that just can't help himself, but to make bad choices and to alienate people by thinking he always is right. And that's kind of how I approached it. Also, when you're doing something like that, you don't want to make him completely off-putting. You know, It's not a sketch show. And so you want to put in a little bit of just a tad of vulnerability. And I think that's when, he starts talking about his dad, and it was his dad's baseball cards and such. You really need to, I guess, pull back and just make him believable. Again, I try to approach comedy in that, and I'm sure I'm starting to really bore people now, but I try to approach it pretty seriously. Not that I take comedy serious. It's that I think if you are playing a comedic character and you try to be too funny with it, it ruins it. I think if you play that character like it's a human being, that's far better. And so that's kind of the approach I went with Pryce on Better Call Saul. But also, I mean, for crying out loud, that writing is incredible on that show. So I mean, I can only take a pinch of credit.
And I heard somewhere that you were a big fan of Breaking Bad. I mean, as was like 95% of America.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah.
So I can only imagine, as an actor, as a person that loved the show, to get the call like, yeah, you're going to be on the show and you're going to be staring down some of the people that you've watched and feared and loved. And what's that like? Tell me.
I mean, the scene I had on the show was in the parking ramp where I'm kind of interviewing the three lowlifes that are going to protect me. One of them is Mike Ehrmantraut, played by Jonathan Banks. And that was the first time, and it's the only time that this has happened to me, where I flubbed a line because I caught myself thinking, you're talking to Mike from Breaking Bad right now. And I just flushed, panic ran over me. And, and again, gosh, I've been so lucky. Jonathan, later that day just was like, just take your time, take a breath. You're fine. You're doing great. And again, for a non-trained actor, that's really, really important to have someone that you look up to that can guide you a little bit or tell you that everything's okay. He gave me the best advice I've ever gotten in my life. He and I would, after filming days, we would go have a beer or whatever. And he said, the best advice I can give anyone is that you need to give yourself a break. You just need to give yourself a break. And I think that's so important. And I think about that, a lot. We all try to be so perfect, or, you make a mistake here or there and you beat yourself up for days about it. But sometimes you just have to give yourself a break. And yeah, Jonathan is such a great, great guy and was so incredible to work with. Really incredible. I spent most of my time filming with him. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. He for such an intimidating presence on screen, he does he does like I as I watch, I go like, I feel like there is a heart of gold in there, like the character, but also the actor.
Exactly. I tell you, he's one of the closest people I've met that's closest to their character, but not in a mean way, not in the negative way,
Right.
in the just kind of, gruffish, but just a heart of gold.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, he's not acting. That's just, they're just filming him and go about his day,
Yep.
Okay. So from there, you do Son of Zorn, which, by the way, I loved. I wish there was more of it. I really enjoyed it. I loved the idea of the hybrid of live action and cartoon, maybe because I grew up on like Roger Rabbit and things like that.
Totally.
But whatever, it is what it is. But you did an episode of This Is Us and AP Bio, Fresh Off the Boat. I'm curious, all these things before, and a bunch of other things that your IMDb page is amazing, by the way. But you did so much things. What can you say that as you've built this resume and leading up to getting What We Do in the Shadows, like, what did you gain from each of these opportunities? Like, what are you collecting as far as a skill set to prepare you for the next thing?
Yeah, you're collecting confidence, I think, is a big thing. And that's different than ego. It's confidence in your abilities, and an ease. I think if I were to go back, I would see a progression of being more at ease on camera and feeling like I do have a skill set now. And that is something that you gain with each show you're on, whether it's behind the scenes or in front of the camera. I mean, behind the scenes, you're dealing with a lot of people that you've never met before, every show that you do. And so you're building a skill set in your ability to communicate better and to empathize or sympathize or whatever it is and connect with people, which is so important in any business you're in or any line of work you're in. And then going on in front of the camera, it's really, it's almost hard to explain, but I don't even think twice anymore now when I'm in front of the camera and playing a character. And that just comes with time. I think you can't rush that. I can look back on my first appearances on The Office and I still think they're, fine and people seem to like them. But when I watch, say, What We Do in the Shadows, I feel like the character is I guess a little more drawn out or a little more
well-rounded.
Real. Yeah, well-rounded. Thank you.
Okay.
And I think that just comes with time. You can't rush it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I almost get the feeling that from everything we've talked about so far, that maybe early in your career, there was this sense of like, oh no, maybe like I'm a fraud. Maybe they're going to find out I don't belong here. Like one day they're going to wake up and realize, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Has that gone away? Has that gotten smaller? Is that still there?
Yeah, the imposter fraud. Yeah, it's not so much there anymore now that I haven't thought about it in quite a while, and so I guess it's not as much there. I think being on Shadows has helped probably because that's the first show I'm a regular, series member of, and so I feel like, well, if they bought it, who am I to argue?
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends in the business that still have that, and they're far more successful than I am. So maybe I'm just dim. I don't know.
Hey, sometimes what's it? Ignorance is bliss, right? Just
yeah. There you go. Exactly.
All right, we got a ton of questions, obviously, for What We Do in the Shadows, guys. I'm going to get to them. So right off the boat, let's see. We got Kyle on YouTube says, "What do you what? Oh, sorry. Okay, let me try this again. Who do you work with the most in season 4 of Shadows?" And I don't know if
in season 4, that's
okay. Are you allowed to say?
Interesting question. What's that?
I said, are you allowed to talk about it? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, I season 4, I don't work with anyone all that much. And then I work quite a bit with Matt Berry.
There you go.
So Laszlo.
Which by the way, season 3, the two of you guys like becoming friends and it's so good. It's so good. These two opposites that really shouldn't work well together. And but the comedy gold between you guys is phenomenal. I really loved it. So,
I'm happy you like it.
kudos. Let's see who else we got. Okay, here you go from, oh my God. The usernames, I can't. Ash Shytown, I'm going to go with. It says, for Shadows, what did you think of Kayvon's impersonation of your character on the show?
Well, unfortunately for me, that's not the first time I've heard Kayvon do my voice. Kayvon fancies himself an impressionist, and he is quite good. And so there's been many times where, he'll either do me or do Matt Berry. And it's always funny. I mean, it is always funny, and it's, you have to sit and think, well, I mean, do I really sound like that? But I'm sure I do. So it was really funny that they wrote it in finally for him to do. And, it was funny because he said, hey, can everyone send me just a clip of you saying the lines that I have to say? And I just was like, you idiot, you do me all the time. Why do you need to hear exactly how I would say it? But he did a great job. It's so funny. He's a very, very funny person.
All right. Let's see. From Bree, what cast member cracks you up the most?
Oh, Natasha, who plays Nadja, Natasha Dimitru. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met. She just, we film a lot at night and early morning. So a lot of times it'll be like 3, 4, or 5 a.m. and you're just kind of punch drunk, and her performance always makes me laugh. And she's one of my favorites too. I love them all, and they're all great to work off of, but I really enjoy the times I get to work with Natasha because they're so few and far between, I think.
Right. Yeah. I think she's definitely, one of the characters that, she gets to really ham it up. She gets to really go over the top. Which I think, like, when I watch a show, I can almost get a sense of like, are they having fun doing it? And you guys, the cast, look like you're just having a ball. Like it doesn't look like you're trying really. It just looks like a lot of fun. So, I mean, kudos to you guys for making it look. I mean, who knows? Maybe you're just that good of an actor, but you really do make it look like you're having fun. So that's good.
No, we do. We definitely do.
From Evan, he says, huge fan, Mark. Will the cast be going to Comic-Cons and panels this year to talk about season 4?
I hope so. I don't know yet. They haven't really gotten into that yet with us. It's my favorite is going to Comic-Con because you get to meet, love the show and stuff. And that's honestly far better than going to, just where you're just talking to a bunch of critics or, talking to other people in the industry. It's to go and meet people that actually love what you're doing. So I'm hoping, but they haven't said yet.
Okay. And curious, prior to Shadows, what was like when you got recognized? What was typically the most you were recognized? Was it like Nate on The Office? Was it Pryce on Better Call Saul? Who were you most recognized usually as?
It's kind of shifted. At first it was Nate from The Office, and then it became Pryce from Saul, and now it's either Colin Robinson, Pryce, or Nate. The thing that's really changed is I have, 14, 15, 16-year-olds coming up to talk to me about Nate from The Office. And so that's really neat to have a younger generation that's now finding a character that you did. I guess it was only 10, 11 years ago, but it's still pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. A new generation being exposed to comedy greatness, which I didn't.
I don't know about that. But
I didn't say it earlier.
For sure.
I didn't say it earlier, but I did. One of my favorite scenes with you as Nate is when Rainn Wilson, Dwight he's trying to pick up the day laborers, and you're having to converse with him in Spanish in front of all these. That was, I don't know why. My wife's El Salvadorian, so that's probably why I find it so funny. But because I stand next to her and I talk Spanish and I feel like I'm like, okay, yeah, that's how I feel. So that was awesome, man. You did it. Was speaking Spanish tough for you, or was that something you've done before?
You know what? I remember thinking it's really tough. I am awful with foreign languages. It's an area that and I don't know. I've just always been bad at it, but it was something that I knew the writers were so smart that they knew it would be funny in my Midwest accent. So yeah, that was my first scene with Rainn, actually, or with any other cast member, was that scene. And so that's a special scene for me too.
Awesome. Let's see another question from Evan. So so now spoilers for those that haven't seen, finished season 3, which how dare you? I mean, you've had plenty of time. But for those that haven't seen, your character, Colin, dies. I mean, it's saying in quotation marks, he dies at the end of season 3, only to be found out to be kind of whatever you want to call it, reincarnated, or it's not really reincarnated. He's what would be the term? Rebirthed. Yeah, I like that. Rebirthed from himself, I guess. So he wants to know, what did you think of your death scene and what it means for your character going forward?
That's an interesting question. I loved the death scene. I thought it was really good and really well done. We have an incredible effects team on set with us that do practical effects. So that was a dummy's head that Nandor kind of reaches into, and,
Right.
and all that goo is in there. And they filmed that like 4 times. And so each time they had to have the head, that they needed the head to be able to spring back. And so you wouldn't see, the line marks where the cracks were. I mean, they're just so brilliant with that. It's interesting. One aspect, you want the character to be a little different, and at the other side of things, it could be really funny if he's not different at all. And so that was a decision that we had to make that I think people they'll have to wait to see what happens with that.
Right.
It'll be more interesting to see, for me personally, if I change anything going into season 5 now. And if there has been any effect to him going through this transformation, we'll see. But yeah, we'll have to wait for that.
I'm excited. So that's the next question. Is perfect. Can you say, do you know, has it been announced? When does season 4 come out, man? These people, they're begging on this chats right now. They want to know. Is it soon?
I don't think it has been announced, but I think it'll be, I don't know. I'm going to say July would be my best guess.
Okay.
I think I heard that at some point, but it's not a breaking story or anything.
You've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Would be, yeah, exactly. That would be my guess.
We're gonna leak it to TMZ. You heard it here first. Mark has confirmed, committed to July. Yeah. So
I'll get a call from Mickey Mouse.
From Sarah G on YouTube. Hi, Mark. We need more Nandor and Colin scenes. Anything? Can you tease? Are we possibly going to see more Colin and Nandor scenes in the future?
Yes. I think that's another combination that I really enjoy because Nandor is so dumb. And Colin really likes to make fun of him, but then Nandor's so dumb that he thinks he's making fun of Colin. It's a very fun scenario, and Kayvon is so great to work with. So I hope we get some more of those scenes in the future. But in the near future, yes, there's going to be a little more of Nandor and Colin moments. Very
nice. And like, way to tie it back here is that, like, I almost get a sense of like that Nandor has a lot of similarities to your Kenny character, in that it's this, like, he's the butt of the joke, but like I'm being serious, he's being sincere, but like, I don't know, like they're just the character study of the two of them. Like, I would love to see the two of them talking to each other. That would be hysterical, in my opinion. Kenny's teaching Nandor how to do yo-yo tricks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely a few IQ digits missing in Nandor. And that's, I guess, the polite way to talk about Nandor.
I love it. We're already coming up to the top of the hour. This has been so much fun. A couple more questions for you.
No worries.
So for those that don't know what we do in the shadows, there's source material behind it, right? There was a film made, very much like The Office, right? It's based off something that was done before, and then it's the Americanized version of it. What did you know about it prior to booking it, or is it something that you became aware of after? And did you look at it, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, no, I definitely watched it before. I watched it when it came out. And I just remember being so jealous. It's such a smart idea, having a world where vampires coexist with mortals is just such a funny idea. And then to create a mockumentary around it, I was very jealous of those guys. And then when the opportunity arose, I was very excited, but then didn't hear back about any of it for months. And then just out of the blue got the call and said, "Hey, we're going to be filming in the fall." So it was exciting, but yeah, I was definitely familiar with it.
Nice. I'm curious. So you find out you get booked for Colin Robinson. What kind of prep goes into you creating this character? I mean, obviously you're playing the words as written, but for those that don't know the bit, like you have to give life to those words. So what's that prep work for you?
I wish I could tell you that, I trained actors write down a bunch of stuff and rehearse and all that. I usually just let the writing find it for me. And after a few episodes, the character's usually there. With Colin, I like I mentioned earlier, I used to temp. I spent 5-6 years temping in various offices and various settings that I've known a lot of people like Colin Robinson. I've been stuck in conversations week after week with Colin Robinson. And so I drew on that past experience that I had to flesh him out quite a bit. And I think if you watch season to season, he comes into himself in front of the camera. He becomes a little more at ease with the camera being around. And that was definitely something that I thought about beforehand, which is it would take a little while to open up to having cameras around you the entire time. But yeah, as far as preparation goes, I just try to find it as quickly as possible in the writing, and in the direction. They'll tell you early on if there's something that you're doing or not doing. They'll let you know. But yeah, luckily I just kind of slid into this character pretty easily.
Okay. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think too, you obviously had the experience to draw back on of that fake camera watching you record, like from The Office, right? It's
Sure,
the same, it's the same
totally.
shtick but obviously a supernatural spin on it. It's the Supernatural Office.
Yeah. It's the monsters.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Documented.
Yeah. Oh no, I like that, and I never even thought about the monsters if they were documented. I like that. So you have a few people who are all saying pretty much the same thing, in that the casino episode is one of their absolute favorites. One of my favorite lines was your comment to Guillermo at the dinner table when he's having a sentimental moment with the vampires. Let's see what else. There's so many. You have no idea how many people are giving you love in the chats and just loving what you do.
That's very sweet.
Your conversations with Guillermo are hilarious, especially the casino scene. What was it like having that moment with him?
Harvey's fun to work with in that he just plays a really great straight man. And so I felt like with him, I can do anything and he will reciprocate perfectly. He will give me the exact perfect response. And so I remember thinking that I can do pretty much anything here and he'll respond accordingly. And, he, again, like each of these cast members brings their own specialty to the table. Matt Berry's bluster, and Natasha's, very high amped behavior. Kayvon can do great, stupid people, and Harvey can play a great, straight man. And it's a talent. It's a definite talent to be able to do that. And so anytime I get to work with him, I'm excited because Colin can just do any sort of reaction towards him and it'll play perfectly.
Yeah. I look at like these ensemble casts, like the really good shows, it's like one big Swiss Army knife, and each character, each actor is that one, utility item that is perfect for that specific scenario. And then you can kind of match and like, you can have fun with it. And it, like I said, it just seems like so much fun when you guys are doing it. Let's see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and the writers write to those abilities.
Yeah. And speaking of that's a perfect segue to my next question, which was, you said you find yourself in the writing, you find the character in the writing, and it makes sense that, they've established this in the writer's head, this is who the character is, and then you're going to go give it life. As you continue on and you get to season 2 into season 3, and you've found your way into that character, do you get a say on Colin? Like, do you go, well, I think Colin might say this in this scene? Like, do you get to put your stamp on him, or do you still just let the writers do what they do and try not to interfere?
No, the writing is so good, and they're very good about letting me improvise. And just like on The Office, they were really good about letting actors, go off of script after you get a couple in the tank. And so we always try to get 2 takes exactly how they're written. And then I can go off and start talking. A lot of times my long-winded, I guess where I'm feeding and I'm trying to bore someone, a lot of that is just me talking about stuff I know. And otherwise, if it was written, like written word for word, I would come across as just acting.
Right.
and saying lines. Whereas if I'm talking about it at the top of my head, there will be some pauses that are natural, which you would have when you're talking to someone in real life. But no, I guess being married to a writer, I think I know better than to say, oh, my character wouldn't do this at this point. I think that's for like maybe if you're a lead on a hit show and the show has your name on it or something, maybe then I think people can feel like they have that, I guess, responsibility to the character or something. But
Right.
in any of the shows I've been in, I've never been asked to do something or say something that I didn't think was appropriate for the character. So again, that goes back to being just kind of lucky.
Okay. Fair point. Fair response. All right, guys, we're going to a couple more questions from the audience, and then we're going to call it a night because Colin has been Colin. I just called you Colin.
See, I'm boring you.
Mark has been so good and given us so much of his time. We'll ask a few more questions and we're going to let him go. So from Ash Town, do you guys still do mostly night shoots or do you mostly shoot in studios now?
No, unfortunately, we mostly still do night shoots. So, this last 3 a.m. call time, at 2 a.m. call time, that's when you have to be at set. And, it's hard to be funny and improvise at 4 a.m. I'm sure many service people know waking up that early isn't the best thing to do.
Yeah. That's usually when the most comedy comes out of us. It's just when you're sleep deprived and third day without food.
That's when we laugh the most. But.
That's a fair point. Let's see, from Daria in the Woods, Mark, you're my favorite part of Shadows. Are there any new sets in season 4? So I guess, are we going to different places that we haven't been before?
Yes, I can say that.
There you go. Okay.
And this, like I said before, this show each season it goes above and beyond. And we have a great set designer, Kate Bunch, who I think is one of the best in Hollywood that I've ever worked with. And her and her team, they outdo themselves every year.
Outstanding. All right, last 2 questions, guys. We got to let them go. So from Will May, we got to know, do you root for Guillermo and Nandor as much as the fans do? I don't know if I agree with that, but do you?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. No, I think it's great that people do. I guess because Colin is kind of detached from that. Especially from Guillermo, who he thinks of just a nuisance around the house and the occasional snack to snack upon. I think he just doesn't care about anything even remotely close to a will they, won't they type scenario. Personally, I think it's cute and I think it's fun, and we'll see if anything ever comes out of that. I think that's one of those scenarios that the writers didn't really know would appear. To be honest with you, I think that was something that fans started pointing out, and I think the writers have become aware of it via that way.
Yeah,
but
it came out organically.
Yeah, but being, I have to side with Colin in that I'm an old married dude. The romance stuff of 2 characters doesn't really work as much for me anymore. So I'll leave that for the younger people.
Gotcha. All right. Last fan question. He says, and I don't know if you're allowed to, well, I guess it wouldn't, it's not spoiling anything, but when do you guys start shooting season 5? Are you allowed to say?
I don't know if it's been announced that we have a season 5 yet. But I've been told that if there is, we will be starting in September.
There you go.
My assumption is we'll have one. I think the show's doing decent enough for them, and people certainly love it. And so I would think there would be. And as of right now, it's a moving target. As of right now, it's September.
Sure. And I would hope it is. Yeah. I mean, you guys have been Emmy nominated. What a huge honor for that. I mean,
very much.
You've been on Emmy nominated, Emmy award winning shows, but like you said, to be a part of the main cast, right? To be part of when you think of the show, that you're one of the people that come to mind because it's your show. So I'm sure to be nominated is such a huge, rewarding thing for all the work that everyone puts into it. So that's awesome. Again, congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. And award shows, you can say what you want, but I think no matter what field of work you're in, it's always nice to be recognized for putting in hard work. And so it is an honor, when you're on something that is recognized for everyone's hard work.
That's awesome. And I'm going to ask you the last question of the night, and it's going to be, being on a show like this, everyone gets to do these kind of ridiculous, over the top costumes and accents, and then you're kind of playing the one straight man in that it's Colin Robinson. It's just the guy. Do you ever do you ever have that envious jealousness of like, man, I wish I had the big cape and the fan, like the whole shtick and the wigs and all that stuff?
No, you have no idea how much that stuff weighs and it gets wet and just becomes, it's like, well, you would know. I mean, you service people, because it's like it's 50 pounds on your back all of a sudden when those capes get wet. And they spend forever getting their hair done. And I'm honestly, I obviously don't get my hair done. And so I am in the makeup chair for 10, 15 minutes, and then I'm ready to go. It takes those guys an hour to 2 hours every day. And those fangs are just a pain in the ass for them. I really Harvey and Guillermo and I are so lucky that we don't have to do even a half of what those guys have to do. And the flying, that hurts. I mean, it's right on your crotch, and you don't sleep well that night.
What a great spin on it.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to just wear my beige.
I'm just happy to be Colin.
Yep.
Awesome. Yep. Well, I'm going to give you the last minute here. Is there anywhere people can follow you on social media? How can people support? Is there anything you want to promote? What do you have coming up that you want people to see? The floor is yours, sir.
I just I'm kind of off social media these days. I think being on a show like this where people actually want to know things about you and ask questions about a show that you're working on is really huge. That's the support that, I really love. As far as things coming up, there's a handful of little things here and there, an animated show for Netflix, but stuff like that coming up. But, I really like just being on a show where you can tell there's people that actually enjoy what you do. When you're on a show, you don't really have an audience there unless you're on a multicam type situation. And so hearing people loving the show and bringing up stuff that I had already forgotten about is really great. And I really do appreciate that.
Awesome. So humble, guys. So humble. I'm gonna find the things that you got coming up, and I'm gonna talk to the audience about it so that they can go check it out. Because we appreciate you for taking the time and sitting with us tonight. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much, Mark.
No, thank you, and thank you to everyone out there. What you guys do is a trillion times harder and far more important, and we certainly appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm going to toss to a break. I'm going to say goodbye to our guest. This has been the amazing, fantastic, hilarious Mark Proksch, everybody. We'll toss it to a break. Thank you again, Mark, and we'll be right back, guys. Shuts.